They watched as the horrific figures outside opened their blood-red mouths. Their teeth stained with gore and fat, the stench overwhelming. Their combined strength allowed the adventurers to escape the thousands of zombies, even if they couldn't kill them all. So despite the chaos, even the new recruit Guoshu remained relatively calm. Peng shoved aside a fat corpse with its brains blown out, and examined a newspaper lying on the table. This world lacked color printing technology, and after the Abyss incursion it never would. The front page featured a beautiful model in leather, her face strikingly similar to Audrey Hepburn. She wore a black fur coat and smiled innocently and sweetly. Such beauty was likely now digesting in a zombie's stomach. Technological civilizations usually exist in low magic planes. Of course, places as low magic as Earth, practically devoid of magic, are rare among the countless planes subjugated by the witch world. Low magic plane humans lack sufficient resistance to the Abyss influence. When the two planes connect, the Abyss magical tide surges, not as poison gas or virus, but something that could even enhance human evolution, but the pace is too rapid for most to handle. The magical tide surged, and in an instant, more than half of humanity in the low magic plane was wiped out, transforming into zombies to hunt those with high magical affinity that evolved. A technological civilization, built over hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of years, was devoured and digested by the Abyss in mere months or even years. It was utterly terrifying. Old Cole, like Peng, gazed at the room's furnishings, muttering to himself, a soliloquy for both the assembled company and his own memory. Worlds that followed the path of technological civilization were rare among the myriad planes. Those, like Earth, that had reached the peak of the Fourth Order and were on the verge of the Fifth were exceptionally few. A testament to their vulnerability to the Abyss. If they were lucky enough to avoid it, that was fine. But once afflicted, they were swiftly torn apart and annihilated, their very existence consumed, making even the dissemination of their civilization's flame to other planes nearly impossible. The adventurers' team had stumbled into a dilapidated room containing newspapers, a television, and various other items and furniture Peng didn't recognize. Outside, the zombies piled up while they lacked coordinated strength. The sheer mass generated immense pressure, cracking the walls. Those at the rear were crushed into paste by the relentless pressure from the outside. "Humph, seems they're ravenous," said Lu Yido, descending from the second floor, tossing a metal bucket to Peng. "There's plenty of oil here. I tested it, it still ignites. Should be explosive too." Peng caught the bucket, bringing it to his nose. A strong smell of gas. The Abyss's devouring laws were endless and unpredictable. Years ago, when it consumed Earth, a significant portion of the elements on the periodic table lost their original properties. Oil would burn, gravitational anomalies caused building collapses, electromagnetic chaos disrupted communications, and even many established scientific laws were rendered meaningless overnight. This is why Earth's civilization crumbled under the Abyss's assault. Although the zombification caused by the magical tide wasn't excessively severe, comparatively speaking, under the moonlight, atop the building where they were located, situated on a relatively high slope within the city, whether naturally or a result of the Abyss's reshaping of the landscape, Peng stood. He tied a rope to the end of his heavy, ice-fire destructive spear, then bent down, drew back his arm, and hurled the spear towards a distant attic below. Peng used a silken rope as a sling, sliding down from the roof. On the other side, an old, grey-haired zombie had its mouth agape, waiting for fresh meat to come to it, only to be kicked in the neck by Peng. It collapsed onto the floor, unable to rise again. Drawing his axe shield, Peng felled the few remaining zombies around the attic one by one. The word kill wasn't appropriate here. These beings had been dead for an unknown length of time. Dong Yuzhen and Lu Yido slid across the makeshift rope bridge, one after another. As the silver-haired, red-eyed elf finished securing herself, hordes of zombies, having broken through the wall, flooded into the room. Drawn by the scent of living beings, Yuan leaped back off the eaves, simultaneously firing several shots from her dual pistols into pre-positioned flammables and oil drums. Orange flames licked at the fuel as Yuan slid down the building and was caught by Peng. A deafening explosion boomed, obliterating hundreds, perhaps thousands, of zombies in a fiery maelstrom. The intense blaze illuminated the pitch-black night. Chapters O Reforms and Romance. Civilization's weapon. The intense firelight illuminated half the small city, billowing black smoke rising towards the heavens. The Blood Eagle, which had recently made a name for itself in the Dark First Realm, circled above this massive tomb-like city. The explosions and fire would undoubtedly attract its attention, but unless absolutely necessary, Peng didn't intend to confront it. His target was the burial goods within the city's cemetery. According to the destiny card, the burial goods consisted of two incredibly powerful firearms. Like the heroes and warlords who were watched over by fate during the collapse of a nation, this roughly third-tier civilization had also made its death throes when invaded by the Abyss. The plane's collective consciousness focused its luck onto exceptional individuals, hoping they could lead humanity to resist and overcome the abyssal invasion. The result, those favored by it unless they chose to fall to the Abyss, met particularly gruesome ends. A third-tier civilization struggling against the endless abyss, even a mantis trying to stop a chariot literally. A mantis trying to stop a chariot doesn't fully capture the disparity, of course. Resistance was still necessary. There was always a chance of delaying the closure of the plane's connection. Within the city's cemetery lay 2 pistols belonging to a young couple. As heroes of their world, they fought, resisted, and died, eventually fading into oblivion with their civilization, leaving behind only 2 weapons imbued with the plane's will: crimson romance. This pair of outrageously powerful blank weapons followed the favored child of fate and received enchantments from the civilization's will. But with the demise of the favored child and the subsequent swallowing of the third-tier civilization's will by the endless abyss, the guns fell from their original golden quality to blank. However, their base remains, and with a re-enchantment from a master enchanter in the witch world, regaining their former glorious powerful, golden quality. Third-tier civilization weapons wouldn't be difficult. These 2 former third-tier firearms were fundamentally more advanced than Blood Eagle's quiver of returning arrows. However, the risk involved in obtaining them was negligible, making a quiet fortune without attracting attention. That's what Peng wanted. However, this beautiful plan came to a screeching halt as the 7 of them pressed forward into the city graveyard. With the Blood Eagle's nest, the city graveyard at its center, over 100 professionals had gathered around it. What the hell is wrong with you people? Over 100 people surrounding a first-tier boss. Do you think Blood Eagle is the Spider Queen Andariel? Another bunch here to share the spoils. Bad luck. Come on, our boss wants to see you. A skinny man with a sinister look, juggling a pitch black dagger between his fingers and chewing on a toothpick, practically had him a villain written across his forehead. He glared at Peng and his 6 companions, his eyes briefly lingering on Yevon and Dongshu before quickly narrowing. Then the man turned and led Peng's group to meet his so-called boss, while his attitude wasn't exactly friendly. There were no further provocations. This was a rather seasoned professional thief, perhaps level 10 or so, with less potential than Zhang Yuzhen. He was the type who lacked ambition but had made adventuring his profession. Such thieves might not be strong in combat, but they were usually perceptive. Upon seeing Yevon and Dongshu, he instantly classified Peng's group as extremely dangerous. In the lawless and chaotic dark domain, only ruthless killers could bring such beautiful and shapely women this far inside the abandoned building. Around scattered fires sat a mass of refugee-like professionals. The vast majority were men, with only a few women, whose auras either exceeded the men's brutality or were wickedly depraved. As Peng's group approached, several brutish men whistled at Yevon and Dongshu. Yevon, having witnessed far worse during her time in Kid's Bloody Maw, remained exchanging light smiles with Peng, ignoring the onlookers. In contrast, a scavenger by origin appeared timid and weak. She instinctively shrank behind Lu Yidao, unaware that her vulnerability only fueled the surrounding men's interest, emboldening them to become increasingly vulgar and repulsive. Zhang Yuzhen, standing beside Dongshu, knew he should intervene, but was unsure how. Should he fight those professionals? Just then, Lu Yidao, walking behind Peng's left side, let out a low hum. The old man's gaze sharpened, like blades slicing across the faces of the brazen professionals. In the realm of Chinese martial arts there exists the art of compelling gaze. Simply put, those of exceptional martial prowess or high rank possess a bearing that blends their physical presence and spirit into an aura of authority. A single glance from them can chill the hearts of ordinary people, even in the 21st century police. A stern glare from a seasoned officer would send petty thieves trembling. During crackdowns, arrest, imprison and execute, the method greatly improved China's public security. Back then, veteran officers possessed this intimidating air. Willow One Cut, a lifelong martial artist who recently achieved a breakthrough, let out a cold snort. A single, blade-like sweep of his gaze silenced the assembled professionals. Moments later, they all averted their eyes from the grey-haired swordsman, unwilling to contend with the terrifying intensity of the old man's gaze. With such a reliable subordinate as Old Man, even Peng, who walked at the forefront, seemed to exude an aura of power and oppression. Then, they saw the temporary leader of these nearly 100 professionals, a burly giant, almost 2 meters tall, beside a huge bonfire. He sported a bushy beard, small eyes, and a bulbous nose, resembling a character from League of Legends Gragas. Another bunch here to mooch off the food. What skills have you got? Show me something. Or you won't see a dime from the Blood Eagle quest. A powerfully built man in heavy iron armor, with a large wooden shield and a menacing warhammer at his side, spoke while greedily gnawing on roasted meat. Unlike Peng's current situation, this large man, having become the temporary leader of the nearly 100 professionals, must possess some skill, or perhaps his sheer physique alone makes him a natural heavy infantry warrior, a man of immense strength. Show you something? Alright. Peng's gaze swept across the professionals surrounding the stout man, and he unexpectedly spotted the legendary woman who intensely disliked men, the captain of the female adventure team Crimson Rose, Magli. She and her female adventurers were seated to one side. It seemed Lady Magli was lucky she hadn't immediately triggered the Nun's Bones quest, with another team of professionals acting as a shield and perishing under the Blood Eagle's arrows before her. But now, having accepted the quest, she was in a difficult position. The previously suppressed gold was one thing, but the real problem was that failing the already accepted quest would ruin the hard-earned reputation of Crimson Rose. Furthermore, this female wore even more ferocious and brave than most men, secretly harbored ambitions of wealth and glory. Chapter 40 Instant domination. Unerring steps. Within the desolate, gloomy abandoned building, orange flames flickered in several bonfires, preventing any light from escaping and alerting the Blood Eagle. Over 100 professionals, even low-level ones, could easily take down a small boss, as long as they didn't have internal problems. Peng drew a heavy, all-metal javelin from behind. His movements were slow, yet his demeanor grew increasingly intense, shifting from weighty to sharp and menacing. The barrel-chested man, who moments before had seemed boisterous over his drink and meat, felt a subtle shift in the air and instinctively turned his gaze. In that instant, Peng subtly shifted his left hand, which held the ice-cold round shield, reflecting the firelight into the man's eyes. This tactic would be useless to a master of Chinese martial arts, proficient in eye-striking techniques, whether it be the Shaolin Temple's wrathful-eyed Vajra method, the Wudang Pure-Yang sect's giant spirit god eye technique, or other schools' eye training secrets. Most practitioners consume animal organs like pig liver and sheep liver to strengthen their eyes, supplementing this with eye-brightening drops and daily massage to improve circulation. Over many years, this strengthens their eyesight to an almost indestructible level. The most skilled practitioners can look directly at the midday sun for half an hour without harm. The classic boxing manuals state in a contest between masters, the eyes lock first. Those with insufficient eye power already lose half the battle. The phrase eyes like torches is no mere exaggeration when describing top-tier martial arts masters. However, even Lu Yido, a master newly entering the realm of Huajin, was far from top-tier and lacked the eye training to stare at the sun for half an hour without consequence. A fat man serving as temporary commander for over 100 professionals on the Blood Eagle mission was even less likely to possess such advanced techniques. The cold iron shield reflected the firelight, causing the large man to instinctively squint. In that very moment, the man before him took a step forward, his feet sinking into the ground, as if the solid concrete had suddenly turned to mud. Standing firm as if rooted to the spot, Peng tensed his muscles, his body arching backward in a curve. In the next instant, his muscles and flesh recoiled like rubber bands, unleashing tremendous power as he flung the heavy javelin. The process, though described at length, happened in a flash. From drawing the javelin to its release, the seemingly rough but shrewd man felt a twinge of apprehension as his vision was momentarily blinded. Then a gust of wind sliced past. He reacted with surprising agility, ducking just as the javelin whizzed by, embedding itself in a concrete pillar with a thud. Bits of concrete showered down, stinging the barrel-chested man. He reached for his large shield and heavy axe, but found, to his astonishment, that he couldn't lift them. A shadow enveloped him. When his vision cleared, the black-haired, black-eyed man had already retrieved the javelin, its point once again aimed at his eyes. He was smiling coldly, ready to strike. "Boss, shall I show you another trick?" With those words, the spearhead of the heavy javelin was practically embedded in the barrelman's eyeball, leaving him too terrified to blink. Peng's feet were firmly planted on the axe shield, rendering the man immobile. His subordinates had drawn their weapons, but with their leader instantly subdued, the remaining 5 opponents didn't seem like pushovers either. Before those distant professionals could react and witness their leader's utter humiliation, Peng had already retracted the heavy javelin and sheathed it behind his back, had already assessed the overall strength of this group of professionals. Wasting any more time was pointless. "You're still their leader. The Blood Eagle quest, if you can handle it. I want compete. Different paths lead to the same heaven. Let's each go our own way." Peng, riding the momentum of his swift subjugation of the barrelman, led his team away from the encirclement of the professionals, cutting through them like a wave parting the sea, none daring to obstruct his passage. However, Peng chose to set up camp nearby, knowing they had a hungry wolf at their heels. Who would dare concentrate on dealing with a tiger? Peng's choice of campsite was, in a sense, a gesture of goodwill. Were open and above board, with no intention of hiding in the shadows to stab you in the back. Over 100 people ganging up on one boss. Even if they win, will there be any profit left? I really don't know what they're thinking. Setting up tents and boiling water. Peng felt a surge of displeasure at the failure of his plan to silently reap massive rewards. That's not true. You said before that taking down Blood Eagle nets a reward equivalent to 2.5 million RMB, split between 100 people. That's 20,000 each. When I was scavenging, I didn't even earn that much in a year. Low-level professionals have only a slight advantage over scavengers for them. Working hard for a month for 25,000 is worth it. Not everyone can level up 4 or 5 times in 2 months like you, Captain, and earn hundreds of thousands each. Dong chewing on dried meat, only then noticing the strange looks from her companions. What's wrong? Do I have something on my face?" "No, it's just you make so much sense." "I'm speechless," Lu Yidao chuckled, his gaze lingering on Peng for a moment before saying nothing more. Since leaving Abyss City, their journey had been almost entirely devoted to travel and combat. Without the usual hassles of professional teams searching for monster groups and estimating their chances of success, the quest chain this adventurer team was using was meticulously compiled by Peng, requiring a considerable investment of time. And even his trump cards, everyone had become accustomed to it, not finding it particularly unusual. Even feeling that the battles were simply exhausting, many of them requiring them to fight to the very limit to win. Yet, at this moment, Dongshu inadvertently revealed a hidden truth. Cunning veterans like Liu Yidao and Cole couldn't help but speculate. Compared to Zhu Peng's ferocious bravery and martial arts skill, this ability to think 3 steps ahead, even flawlessly predicting each move, was all the more terrifying for its enigmatic nature. Captain, I smelled magic on you just now. Was that the empowering spell? You've mastered it. The bear's power temporarily boosted my strength attribute by almost half. Without, I wouldn't have won so decisively. That barrel-chested fellow was incredibly strong, but he tried to overpower my leg strength, only to have his weapon pinned by my energy-dissipating technique. In a real fight, I couldn't have killed him so quickly. He was a seasoned warrior, adding firewood to the fire to dispel the ever-present chill of the Dark Realm. Zhu Peng answered Old Cole, revealing his mastery of the spell book looted from the Voodoo Mage. Chapter 043, Handed Swordsmanship Asuka Gran. The fact that Zhu Peng momentarily subdued his own commander didn't become widely known because he consciously stopped in time. However, those present at the scene could keep it secret. Thus, the 6 of them set up tents in the corner of the abandoned building. While no professional dared to cause trouble, many secretly came to pay their respects and seek employment. In the Dark Realm, everyone was pragmatic, willing to follow a powerful leader, because while other businesses failing only meant losing money, failure in the profession of a professional often meant losing one's life. The problem was that Zhu Peng's requirement for the team's purity was even higher than his demand for combat effectiveness. Even if one wanted to join, he might not be accepted. Most of the low-quality professionals were turned away by Liu Yidao and Zhang Yusen. Zhang Yusen was now quite skilled, mastering a single technique to great effect. Whether it was a shoulder charge or a backstab, he was highly proficient. When learning martial arts, rapid progress initially requires this kind of focused skill. After these 2 had screened out most of the professionals, one person still entered Zhu Peng's tent, a red-haired woman clad in leather armor, carrying a 2-meter-long 2-handed sword. Captain, this girl is an Earth survivor. German, skilled in 2-handed swordsmanship. I was defeated by her. Even Uncle Liu said her 2-handed swordsmanship was very refined, and besides swordsmanship, she's also proficient in close quarters grappling and boxing, so I brought her in for you to see. Zhang Yusen briefly described the red-haired girl, then bowed and left the tent. He passed the girl. Zhu Peng noticed Zhang Yusen giving her a slight smile, a clear indication of his approval of her abilities. In Liu Yidao and Zhang Yusen view, while they hadn't initially planned to recruit anyone, encountering a truly exceptional candidate was an exception worth making. After all, once this mission concluded and everyone returned to Abyss City, Old Cole would undoubtedly leave the adventurer team. Recruiting a new member sooner rather than later was sensible. Replacing Cole would be difficult, as his accumulated strength was nearly at the apprentice limit. With Cole's departure, the team would need at least 2 strong members to compensate for the loss of combat power. Even with 1 leaving and 2 joining, the team would only number 7, hardly bloated. I met you yesterday, didn't I? Yes. I'm currently an assault swordsman for Crimson Rose. The redhead who entered the tent was just over 20, in the prime of her youth. Caucasian women mature early, and despite her leather armor, her figure was stunningly curvaceous, long legs, ample bosom, and a delicate face that resembled a renowned model far more than a swordsman. However, her pale face was strained with nervousness, making her appear rather pitiful. She didn't seem to be driven by opportunistic motives. She genuinely cared about the outcome of this interview. Magri didn't treat you well. To my knowledge, Crimson Rose is extremely united and very supportive of new recruits. The leather armor you're wearing was assigned to you by the team. Correct. Armor is arguably the most valuable type of equipment. Crimson Rose gave you this treatment, and yet you come to me. What do you think he'll think of that? Zhu Peng circled the redhead, a smirk playing on his lips. He wasn't necessarily older, but his greater experience, superior skills and mental fortitude dwarfed hers. Under his gaze, the redhead was like a trembling lamb, stubbornly holding her head high, but barely managing to hold it together. I can return the equipment to the captain, or pay double the penalty fee, please. Take me? I promise to be obedient and work hard. To me, character is more important than ability. If you can betray Crimson Rose today, you can betray us tomorrow. The door's over there. Don't make me show you out. Settling back onto the makeshift chair inside the tent, a legacy from a Japanese professional team. Lightweight but ingeniously designed, Zhu Peng picked up a book on analyzing spell model construction from beside him. It was recommended by Old Cole, though the author was merely an apprentice. The writing was detailed and clear, more valuable than many casual writings from high-level archmages. Had it not been for this book, Zhu Peng might not have mastered the empowerment spell of the bear's power within the 10-odd days of his journey. Skill books that exploded from the Dark Realm were inherently easier to learn than the orthodox spells of wizards. The manifested skill books possessed a wondrous power to reduce the learning difficulty for the reader, limited to a single person. If the difficulty of Zhu Peng learning a spell in the Abyssal City was 10, then using a skill book in the Dark Realm would naturally reduce the difficulty to 4. Therefore, a good skill book was often more precious and sought after than high-level equipment. However, it still required learning. It couldn't be upgraded with a single click like attribute empowerment, and it would more or less cause trouble for deeper understanding and integration in the future. But overall, The advantages still outweighed the disadvantages. Zhu Peng read for a while, but when he looked up again, he found that the silly red-haired girl was still standing there, not having left. Large tears welled up in her sapphire blue eyes. Not really. What are you crying about because you failed to switch jobs? Okay, give me a plausible reason. Otherwise, even if you cry down this tent you still have to leave. I don't need unreliable people here. Considering we're all fellow Earthlings. Zhu Peng gave her another chance, although he didn't think she could really convince him. The captain wants me to ambush Mr. Grawl in tomorrow's battle. I don't want to do that. The captain is very good to me, but I can't do it. Slightly frowned. Zhu Peng crossed his arms, truly surprised by the secret the girl revealed. Grawl, you mean that barrel-chested man? Has the internal conflict already begun before even dealing with Blood Eagle? It makes sense. Crimson Rose's operation is expanding. Expenses are high, and all aspects require money. They are a truly united and powerful team of professionals. Naturally unwilling to share the kill rewards with a group of low-level professionals. Many professionals die in every boss battle, but actually, the number of people killed by the boss is far less than the number of people killed by professionals. It's like the casualties caused by natural disasters on Earth are far fewer than those caused by man-made disasters. You want to leave Crimson Rose because you're afraid of killing? No, I think Captain Magley is far from what I imagined before joining. Before joining, I thought she was a hero, a feminist, who could support a whole world like a man. But that's not the case. She asks us to kill scavengers and seize their belongings. She sends the sisters in the team to accompany those men with some use value. I was mentally prepared to kill and be killed when I came out of the Abyssal City, but I can't accept the captain's methods. Initially, I had some psychological barriers. However, after the first sentence, the girl's words became increasingly clear. Are there any young people whose passion hasn't been extinguished by the coldness of reality? He chuckled, pausing briefly before continuing. Very well. I'll handle the negotiations with Crimson Rose. You'll temporarily join us as a probationary member. You'll receive a share of the rewards from the time you join until you return to Abyss City. If you prove yourself, you'll become a full member on our next mission. Since your character seems sound, and you're not the type who acts sweet to your face but stabs you in the back, we can temporarily accept you. As for your swordsmanship and fighting skills, I haven't tested them. But if someone as arrogant as Lu Yidao praised you, you must be quite skilled. Oh, by the way, what's your name? Zhu Peng asked, turning back as he left the tent. Captain, my name is Asuka Gran. I'm currently an 8th level assault swordsman. German double-handed swordsmanship was once renowned. Asuka, I look forward to your impressive performance. Zhu Peng finally offered the girl a genuine smile. The young woman's face flushed crimson as she nodded vigorously, a single M escaping her. Chapter 1044 Man harbors designs on the tiger. Tiger harbors designs on man's heart. Having laid the groundwork with 2 previous direct and indirect confrontations, Zhu Peng effortlessly suppressed Crimson Rose's leader, Magri, without expending much effort. This woman, known throughout the first domain for her strength and stubbornness, agreed to Asuka Gran's request to leave the team after Zhu Peng presented her with a small bag of shattered gems worth nearly 3,000 gold coins. It was surprisingly easy. As she signed her name on the parchment contract, Zhu Peng saw an inexpressible sadness and loneliness in Magra's plump, round, dark red face. Gran is a good girl. She's hardworking, enthusiastic, and pure-hearted. She should have become a will-based knight, but because of the team's needs, she became an assault swordsman. Take good care of her, kid. Perhaps only someone with your background can keep her world clean and clear. There are many things I don't want to do, but I have to. Magri clearly assumed Zhu Peng was a professional with powerful backing, like the inheritors of the various schools in Wizard City. It was difficult to explain Zhu Peng's astonishingly accurate intelligence network otherwise. Every time she faced Zhu Peng, this woman displayed a melancholic yet proud demeanor, as if saying, I don't have your background, but I can still stand on equal footing with you through hard work. She was truly mistaken. As an Earth refugee, Zhu Peng's roots were actually shallower than hers. This meeting was Zhu Peng's second and final face-to-face conversation with Commander Magri. Soiled hands, blackened heart. Growl and his team's plan to kill Bloodhawk wasn't delayed or altered by Zhu Peng's arrival. Magli and Growl, having assembled their team, wielded power far exceeding their individual capabilities, but they were also in a precarious position, unable or unwilling to retreat. Clad in white metal armor, Growl led a small force of relatively elite advanced class players into the city cemetery, heading straight for Bloodhawk's lair. Bloodhawk as a boss wasn't stupid. If over 100 people charged at her at once, she'd definitely choose to evade, soaring through the sky, beyond the reach of a group of low-level players. For low-level players to fight Bloodhawk, the first step was to lure her, then disable her flight ability. Otherwise, no matter how many players there were, it would be useless. Bloodhawk wasn't just skilled in crossbow and shape-shifting, she could also temporarily control all the zombies in the city. A single misstep, and they could be surrounded by hundreds or even thousands of zombies. At that point, it would be anyone's guess who would survive. Bloodhawk was lured out from a large banyan tree in the center of the city cemetery by a small group of elite advanced class players. She was in a half-human, half-hawk form, radiating a terrifying, pale red magical energy. Clearly, her recent rampage had allowed her to absorb a significant amount of the Dragon Lord's essence, gaining a double enhancement from both the Dragon Lord's power and abyssal energy. Creatures, especially elite or boss-level monsters, could evolve. Their evolution, lacking the structured system of the Witch Network, was chaotic and difficult, but their power wasn't static. Bloodhawk clashed with a group of elite players, while the majority of lower-level players hid nearby with large nets and ropes. Ensuring Bloodhawk's capture, Peng and his team hid on the opposite side of the cemetery. After Grohl's advanced class players engaged Bloodhawk, Peng closed his eyes, replaying the fragmented images he had seen. Chaotic silent black and white images flickered the quest selection at the Grey Wolf Tavern, the Black Stone Temple atop the Frozen Mountain, information about players exterminating monsters in the Frozen Gorge, and the hidden mechanism beneath the sacrificial altar. In this city cemetery, a thin, wiry thief dug up a grave, retrieving a glass box. A crazed smile spread across his face. Opening his eyes again, Peng summoned two strong, axe-wielding. One was a true were-rat, while the other was a mutated sludge mimic. They stood on either flank of the team. In the center, instead of Peng, stood Asuka Gran, wielding a greatsword. As a stormtrooper, she actually possessed greater offensive capabilities than Peng's sword and shield warrior class. Moreover, as a newcomer to the team, she needed to demonstrate her abilities to gain the recognition of her fellow members. Gran led the assault, with Iwan and Uncle Lu flanking left and right. I was in the center, Master Cole in the rear, and Dongshu and Yu Sen brought up the rear, protecting Master Cole. If necessary, use your bodies to shield the Master from any stray arrows now. Target the tombstone 45 degrees to the left of the central banyan tree. Advance, wearing the number 1 data vision glasses. Peng, after most of the zombies wandering in the cemetery had been drawn away by the other professionals, opted for an all-out assault. Minrisan Asuka brandished her greatsword nearly as tall as herself and charged forward. Her swordsmanship was like a raging storm, a whirlwind of steel fueled by German greatsword techniques and the skills of her stormtrooper class. It truly possessed a certain air of sweeping power. The zombies blocking the team's path were either cleaved in two by the red-haired female swordsman or knocked aside by the force of her assault, leaving them vulnerable to the axes of the two jackalmen. Liu Yidao and Iwan barely had to lift a finger. This was partly because most of the cemetery zombies had been drawn away, but mostly because Asuka's swordsmanship was truly exceptional. The nearly spear-like greatsword, double edge pierced a zombie's throat, and a single diagonal slice severed its head. The weapon moved like a phantom whip, slicing through flesh and bone as easily as cutting paper. Reaching their destination, the other professionals fanned out. While Peng and Yusen used entrenching tools to begin excavating the grave, the earth in 1970s Western graves wasn't very deep, lacking the treacherous mechanisms, like mercury or quicksand, found in some large Eastern tombs. Blood Eagle, however, had fallen into the professionals' trap. Although it had torn through the net, it was now bound by thick ropes. It shrieked and flapped its wings furiously. The professionals were rather inept. A group of them tugging on two ropes were being pulled off balance by the agile boss in mid-air. However, as long as Blood Eagle couldn't take flight, it was sufficient. Hundreds of professionals unleashed a barrage of crossbow bolts, throwing knives and javelins, a storm of projectiles raining down upon the Blood Eagle. Even if only a small fraction found their mark, it quickly left the half-human, half-eagle boss battered and bruised, its once fierce presence gradually fading. After several volleys of ranged attacks, the melee professionals, led by the barrel-chested giant Grohl, charged. He and his men formed one group, while Magli and several women formed the Crimson Roses. The other professionals were peripheral, hoping to pick up some scraps after the Blood Eagle was slain. The two adventurer teams would naturally take the lion's share of the spoils, leaving the weaker professionals to fight over what remained. But human desires, they are never easily satisfied. 2.5 million, not a small sum, but certainly not enough for a professional to live comfortably for the rest of their life. A few less coins is always good. After Bloodhawk's consecutive bursts of furious energy left him exhausted and depleted, at the moment everyone relaxed their guard, Grohl landed a heavy blow on Magli, killing her. The 25,000 gold coins that were to be split among 100 people now fell into the hands of a few. The scattered unaffiliated professionals were simply no match for him, unable to seek justice. Grohl didn't know that Magli had harbored similar thoughts. With a twist of his foot and a flash of his sword, Magli, as if prepared, sliced her blade into the gap in Grohl's armored arm. Both clad in armor and possessing strong physiques, they exchanged blows and retreated to their respective ranks, seemingly at a stalemate. Just as Magli was about to speak, a jet-black dagger extended from behind her, slicing across her throat and neck. Blood sprayed out like crimson mist. Magli, clutching her severed neck, turned with difficulty. She saw the thief, the obsequious lecherous simian man who had always followed Grohl. He still held a toothpick in his mouth, his body twisting with a serpentine grace as he wielded his dagger, slaughtering his own subordinates. He was the true leader. The heavily armored Grohl was merely a puppet. Skilled thieves are often the last people you suspect. Skilled assassins remain hidden until the moment of revelation, at which point you understand their terrifying potential. A siege crossbow, pre-positioned in the grass, unleashed a spear-like bolt, possessing the power of a firearm. It pierced Bloodhawk's chest. Gazing at the arrow protruding from his chest, Bloodhawk, who had been so arrogant for so long, let out a roar, and distorted pale white souls dispersed from his body. The professionals killed by Bloodhawk had their souls forcibly bound now. With his death, they were released. but their life force had been greatly drained. A surge of potent magic spread, causing the ground of the cemetery to tremble violently. Cole, what happened? Peng and Zhang Yusen continued digging without looking up. They hadn't even glanced up when Magli was killed. A Sahinagran, sword drawn, attempted to rush to the aid of her former comrade, but was swiftly subdued by the prepared Liu Yidao, who also remained focused on his task. Only now, with the dissipation of dark magic from the fallen Blood Hawk, did Peng finally look up and ask. It should be a self-destruct spell, a death counterattack, with the effect of summoning and strengthening zombies in a short period. Gazing at the mounds of earth in the cemetery, some even pierced by skeletal hands clawing from the soil, Cole's deduction was gradually confirmed. Peng and Zhang Yusen had unearthed a coffin. Peng pried open the lid with a shovel, revealing a man and a woman inside. They were clearly long dead, yet eerily uncorrupted. The man was handsome, the woman beautiful, lifelike like a sleeping couple. Peng frowned slightly at the sight, but Zhang Yusen was quicker. He grabbed the crystal box Peng desired, ignoring everything else. Through the translucent crystal, two exquisitely crafted firearms were visible. Blood. The moment Zhang Yusen's hand closed around the bot's iron grip seized his wrist, the man in the coffin slowly opened his eyes. Simultaneously, his muscles began to swell wildly. The blood eagles spreading magic and fragmented souls in the air were devoured in massive quantities. His eyes, once again open, revealed a darkness and murkness like bottomless abysses. Two elite corpses. Kill the one who's not awake first. Peng raised his axe and swung at the male corpse's neck. These evolving elite corpses were far easier to kill than their fully evolved counterparts, and often yielded better equipment. Normally, Peng would be delighted to encounter such creatures. However, the Blood Eagle was unleashing its death counterattack, casting its most powerful necromantic spell over a city where countless millions had died. Moreover, some individuals of uncertain allegiance were nearby. Peng didn't want to get entangled, he just wanted to escape with blood romance. Every second here was a second of danger. The female corpse was quickly pulverized by Cole and the others' full firepower, although it didn't produce anything tangible. The spreading primal power was of a mutated monster level, undiminished. Conversely, the blood corpse Peng and Zhang Yusen faced grew stronger and more difficult to handle. Like a crimson and green giant's color-swapped version, it suddenly leaped up in the tomb. Tossing Zhang Yusen aside, Peng leaped to catch the young thief, both crashing to the ground. Simultaneously, Unit 1 acquired enough data. Target mutated blood corpse characteristics, exceptionally strong. Exceptionally fast. Designated tactics reduce its movement and blood heat with ice abilities, then eliminate it with long-range firepower. Danger rating extremely dangerous. Characteristic exceptionally fast. Can't escape. Exchange injuries to kill it as quickly as possible. Any zombie in the graveyard with a shred of flesh sprouted forth like radishes, frantically struggling to break free from the earth's grasp. Peng abandoned the now armless Zhang Yusen, wielding his axe shield to fell the newly spawned zombies surrounding them. Simultaneously, Liu Yidao and Asuka Gran, having regained her composure, attacked the powerful and swift mutated blood corpse with sword and knife. The mutated monster itself wasn't the problem. The issue was the massive horde of zombies converging on their location from across the city. It was unclear what spell Blood Eagle had cast before his death, but it seemed as if every living corpse within the city was energized, surging towards the city cemetery like a tidal wave. If they were surrounded by tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of zombies, every professional present would die. No First Realm professional had the stamina to fight their way out of such a hellish situation in open terrain. Chapter 145 Desire in the Heartly Jingji. A dimly lit room, the sound of heavy breathing, the desperate entanglement of bodies. Humans, especially when facing imminent death, crave the propagation of their genes. It's a primal instinct. The bed creaked with each thrust, until both reached their peak, and the frantic atmosphere in the room gradually calmed. A beautiful full-figured woman, pale and fair, clung to the young man's strong, muscular chest like a docile cat, her face flushed as she lovingly caressed his impressive physique. Jingji, we're siblings, we shouldn't be doing this, but you said it would make you stronger. We had no choice to survive. We can survive, right? Didn't you feel it? I'm getting stronger. The strikingly handsome, almost demonic, young man leaned against the bed, holding his beautiful sister in his arms, yet the once frenzy. Adoring darkness in his black eyes had turned calm and cold. He withdrew his hand from the woman's satin smooth back, retrieving a pistol from under the covers. Just as his sister felt the cold, hard metal pressing against her temple, he pulled the trigger. Bang! Blood and brains splattered. Casually pushing aside the still warm corpse, Li Jingji stood up, absorbing the faint, dark mist invisible to normal humans from his sister's body. A dark glow faintly flickered across his muscular frame, making him appear even stronger and more solid. Did I not feel it? You two are praying to the abyss. It is better for me to kill you and gain more of the abyss's attention than to wait for you to kill me later, he muttered, naked and armed with his pistol. As he walked toward the door, at that moment, a young girl clad only in a translucent apron entered, carrying a wooden tray with 2 bowls of instant ramen. The rich broth even contained eggs and sausages. Since the Dark Invasion and the arrival of the Abyss a few years ago, such a meal was a rare delicacy in the eyes of ordinary people. Then she saw Li Jingji, his face smeared with blood and brains, approaching naked. Behind him lay the body of the woman she had envied, stained with blood and semen. The woman lay limp on the cold ground, her unclosed eyes reflecting a hint of disbelief. "Ah!" the apron girl screamed, collapsing. Li Jingji caught the wooden board holding the instant noodles as it fell. The soup inside swayed, but not a drop spilled. "Is it necessary to be so surprised? Xuanhuan, have you never seen a dead person? Or killed one? Or are you putting on an act for me?" Before the tearful girl could answer, the boy had already left the room with his gun and noodles. Naked, he sat in the kitchen and ate. There were 2 other women and 2 men in the house, but there was only one master. In this apocalypse, he held power, possessing guns, food, and even superhuman abilities. In this chaotic and insane world, he could indulge in possessing the school beauty he could never approach before, his elegant and beautiful homeroom teacher, even his alluring and wanton blood-related sister. This apocalypse, quite enjoyable. Just as Li Jingji finished eating 2 servings of instant noodles, mixed with blood, a thin boy about his age, ran into the kitchen in a panic. Upon seeing, he knelt down head to the ground gasping for breath. Master, please, go and have a look. There's an Esper. Are the Jinling City Liberation Army here to arrest us?" At the mention of the Liberation Army, Li Jingji's muscles, but he quickly suppressed his fear. Standing up, he walked to his former best friend, now his most loyal subordinate, grabbed him by the collar and dragged him away. "It can't be the Liberation Army. The abyssal tide assaulting Jinling is getting fiercer. They're short-handed at the front lines. They wouldn't send experts to arrest a few robbers." His confident deduction was shattered the moment he saw the powerful figure outside the window. In the clock tower across the street, a man, strond in his left hand, an axe in his right, a row of spears on his back. Clearly human, he cut through the horde of corpses, as if in no man's land. A 2-meter-tall blood-red giant corpse, its muscles light, repeatedly charged from the surrounding crowd to attack the man, yet it was repeatedly repelled by the man's tight shield and axe attacks, each time sustaining a new, long, terrifying wound. Though the clothing was wrong, the Jinling Defense Line Liberation Army uniforms had long been unavailable, with soldiers now fighting monsters in t-shirts. Anyone possessing the ability to combat evolved zombies in this apocalyptic land, even if not from the Liberation Army, was a specially recruited Special Forces Esper. The Special Forces Esper Awakeners were seasoned veterans of frontline battles against monsters. Not a single one was to be trifled with. "Master, haven't the People's Liberation Army retreated this far? Perhaps we should save him. It would be a way to atone for our crimes, wouldn't it?" Yao Bail, his frame gaunt, stammered his suggestion. Wang Lai, the bespectacled youth beside him, looked expectantly at Li Jingji. The next moment, the seemingly calm Li Jingji abruptly grabbed Yao Bail, jamming the gun in his hand into the other's mouth. "Atone for our crimes? Atone for your mother's crimes? When I was robbing you lot and you were feeding off my scraps, where was your atonement then? When we were with that Nan University beauty, Gu Ningning, where was your atonement then? Now you've had your fill, had your fun, and want to push me out to die. I'll be damned if I don't take you 2 down with me." The once handsome youth now looked truly demon-possessed. Watching him savagely kick his former crony, Yao Bail, Wang Lai and the 2 girls trembled, unable to utter a word of intercession, or rather, the 2 girls watched Yao Bail being kicked with a glint of satisfaction in their eyes. Just then, a bang echoed as something was thrown from the clock tower opposite, the impact shaking the entire window. The next moment, like a human spider, smashed through the window, he slammed his left circular iron shield against the ground, using the momentum to roll and regain his footing. Sweat trickled down his face, but his movements remained exceptionally agile. Chang Hong Chang Power Mobile Phone. Long standby time. "Hey Yuan, you guys didn't get separated, did you? Don't worry, taking down that mutated blood corpse solo was tough, but if I wanted to run, it couldn't catch me. Wait, let me ask." Peng turned to the handsome young man holding a Type 54 pistol in the room. "Excuse me, where are we?" The boy's response was an immediate raised gun and a shot. Chapter 046, The Human Soul. More pure, more perfect. Bang bang, 3 shots in succession. However, Peng evaded the bullets with nimble footwork. Bullets, however fast, can only travel in a straight line. Moreover, 21st century practical martial artists generally receive specialized training in dodging bullets. If it were multiple people with multiple guns, Peng would have a hard time dodging. If they were wielding an AK-47, that would be a different story. One wrong move and he'd be Swiss cheese. But for an ordinary boy, with a Type 5th, to take down a seasoned trained practical martial artist, that's simply underestimating him. Peng evaded and closed in, finally knocking the 5.4 pistol from the boy's hand with his shield. He planted his right foot up and kneed the naked youth hard in the stomach. The boy flew backward, crashing against the wall with a dull thud. Moments later, clutching his abdomen, he slowly slid to the ground. "It looks like I can't figure out where I am right now. You and Uncle Lu should leave the city and keep an eye on that Asuka. I originally suspected she was a Crimson Rose mole, and although Crimson Rose is gone, don't trust her completely." After a few more words, Peng hung up. Getting a call through here was pure luck. In the Dark First realm, you average 20 tries to get a single call connected. If Peng hadn't drawn the mutated blood corpses away, Lu Yido and the others wouldn't have found a relatively safe spot to make those repeated attempts, finally allowing even to get through. Inside the large house, 2 scantily clad girls, 3 young men, one beaten half to death, one cowering in a corner, and one under his foot. Looks like you're not exactly a good guy either. I'll give you 28 seconds to explain your actions, and that will decide whether I kill you or not. Peng reholstered his round shield, then muttered something under his breath. Please spare me! I only shot you because I was scared! Uncle, I'm sorry, you're my boss from now on wherever you point. I'll shoot, brother boss, dad! Tears streaming down his face, he wailed loudly. When he realized the foot on his chest was crushing his lungs, preventing him from breathing, Li Jingji knew he'd encountered a true master. The young boy didn't hesitate to wail and beg for mercy. Then, he saw the man who was crushing him extend a left hand. A pale purple light flashed and his body seemed to be enveloped in an inexplicable membrane. 28 seconds are up. That's exactly how long it takes me to cast a soul trap. Either the strength difference was too great, or someone helped restrain him otherwise. This technique couldn't be used on a battlefield. Peng raised his right axe and chopped off Li Jingji's head. You haven't even wiped the brains off your face, and you're trying to play innocent in front of me. Do you think I'm new to the apocalypse? The surging soul power, a dense dark purple mist, was bound within the soul crystal. No wonder Devarers belong to the Black Witchcraft school. Human souls are far purer than monster souls, and far easier. Through the soul trap's witch-like perspective, Li Jingji's heart emitted a strange light, the perfect vessel for his soul. Peng knelt down, amidst the horrified gazes of everyone in the room, and used his axe to scoop out the boy's still beating. Powerful hard abyssal cultist, if I let you grow a few more years, might I not witness a true abyssal demon? Gazing at the strong heart, clearly already warped by magic, Peng placed it into the black cloth bag he carried. This needed handling quickly, otherwise, the quality of the carrier would decline. Peng finally tossed the boy's corpse out the window, provoking a frenzied feeding frenzy among the horde below. This was the second tallest, and most lit, building in this ruined city. If Peng hadn't consciously chosen to flee towards the tallest city clock tower, he wouldn't have been able to make the leap here using a javelin and rope, except for the 5th floor window. The house's perimeter had been fortified against the zombies, and thoughtfully so. Peng checked thoroughly, yet he found remarkably few vulnerabilities. As long as there's enough food, and no need to forage, this place is indeed quite safe. Peng, the alias of an abyssal city professional demon hunter. If you don't resent me for killing your leader, you're welcome to stay here. I won't take your food stores. I'll trade these compressed biscuits and solidified water for your bowls of noodles and sausages. Just from the perspective of staving off hunger, you're definitely getting the better end of the deal, including the 2 who just died. There were 7 people in the house: the thin and weak boy, Yao Bail, a classmate and friend of the deceased leader. Though, judging from his injuries, Peng couldn't really see any trace of their former camaraderie. Wang Li, a quiet young man, could drive and repair cars. Even in the apocalypse, skilled labor was in demand. And he was treated far better than Yao Bail, at least he wasn't beaten regularly. The girl in the short sailor suit was Gu Ningning, the buxom girl in the teacher's uniform was Huang Ying, and the girl in the semi-transparent apron was Xu. For some reason, Peng felt that this girl consciously avoided his gaze, unwilling to meet his eyes. Sir Xiaoying and I were forcibly abducted from Nanjing City. We were forced to join them when we reached the zombie zone. Sir, they're not human. Please send me back to Nanjing. My father is the director of the Education Bureau. He will certainly repay your kindness. Gu Ningning sobbed, kowtowing at Peng's feet. She was truly forceful in moments. The girl's fair forehead was bruised and red. In the apocalypse, the surviving girls tended to be quite attractive, or perhaps only beautiful women had the privilege of being protected. As for those who were plain, oddly shaped, or otherwise unattractive, given the brutality of men in the apocalypse, they generally died quicker unless they evolved to be stronger than most men. At least, the 3 girls in this large house each possessed their own brand of beauty, especially Dun Ningning. Her pure maidenly face, fair skin, and beautiful features would have made her a star in the 21st century. A girl who could easily make a living on her looks alone. Even in the apocalypse, she possessed more resources for survival than the others. Are you guys misunderstanding something? Peng surveyed the group, then continued, stop crying. Who can cook first? I don't mind hearing about your respective life tragedies, but I really don't have the capacity to get you out of here, even with my protection. You'll all die quickly once we leave this house. I'll stay here for 2 days to avoid the peak of the zombie frenzy outside. I also don't mind spending half an hour each night teaching you basic survival skills. As for any further requests, I'm sorry. I'm barely keeping myself alive right now. Chapter 047 Born into the Apocalypse. Who isn't pitiful as Doc settled and darkness consumed the land. The hordes of zombies outside grew increasingly active. They were becoming stronger, faster, and more ferocious at a visible rate. The effect of Blood Eagle's death throes was astonishing. Wearing a flimsy nurse's costume from a role-playing game, Dun Ningning knelt before the man, weeping copiously. She was truly delicate, beautiful, and heart-wrenching. Therefore, when Peng unhesitatingly refused her, he seemed all the more cold, cruel, and heartless. Dun Ningning collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, while Xu Wei pulled the sympathetic Wang Ying beside her. Master, this servant will cook something delicious to celebrate your rescue of us from that devil, Li Jingji. As she spoke, the girl bowed. Peng only needed to glance to see Xu Ye's generously endowed and fair breasts. Everyone, go and do your own thing. Call me when it's time to eat. I suppose I'm easier to get along with than that abyss worshipper, at least. I won't kill people for no reason to please the abyssal consciousness. He stood up, casually chose a bedroom, and went in. This large house had many rooms, many of which had been deliberately interconnected, allowing for maneuvering space if zombies broke in. Ning Ning is so pitiful she's been crying her eyes out. It's true, she was a pampered young lady, even in the apocalypse. Her family was well off enough to eat well. She was abducted by Li Jingji and starved for 3 days for even the slightest resistance. She was so fiery at the beginning. In the kitchen, Hong Ying, the plumpest of the 3 girls, chopped vegetables and washed rice. These were the high-quality meat and vegetables Li Jingji hadn't dared to eat himself now. He'd never need them again. Born into this apocalyptic world, who isn't pitiful? Sometimes I envy my parents. They were killed by a car a year before the apocalypse. A quick death. They left me to suffer in this world alone. Jingji is dead now, and I'm truly the only one left in this world. Stirring the soup, swirling the spoon. Ya added some powder wrapped in white paper to the tomato and beef soup. As the soup boiled, a rich, meaty aroma filled the air. To be alive and able to eat a meal like this. How wonderful. A feverish blush crept onto Shuya's small face as she inhaled the rich fragrance of the tomato and beef soup. Yes, who isn't pitiable living in this world of the apocalypse? Following Li Jingji, at least I've eaten my fill for many days, unlike in Jinling City, where I was constantly abused by those foul men. All I ever got was a plain white steamed bun, and even then, I had to take it home for my younger brother. A surge of anger, a wave of sorrow. Huang Ying saw her brother's round little face again in her mind's eye. The way he would call her sister in his milky voice. He loved his sister the most, clung to her the most. But after their parents starved to death, Hong Ying abandoned her brother, the only remaining child of the Huang family, whom her mother couldn't bear to leave behind even in her death throes. In his private room, Peng opened the curtains to observe the frenzied reactions of the zombies running rampant below. Generally, to conserve energy, zombies move slowly and sluggishly. Only the stimulus of fresh flesh will trigger their furious outbursts, increasing their speed several times over. Now, fueled by Blood Eagle's magic, all the zombies within the ruined city were in a frenzy. Especially at night, they were like headless flies, running and crashing into everything. With so many zombies, this chaotic, city-wide search was exposing many professionals who had been painstakingly hiding. Unless you possessed special abilities, like Peng's jungle leap using his javelin and lasso, lower-level professionals couldn't possibly keep fighting and killing amid a city full of zombies. Professionals get tired, they get exhausted. After intense battles, they need food and rest. There are hundreds of millions of zombies in the ruins city, and almost nowhere is completely safe. Once trapped in such a sea of zombies, even the strongest low-level professionals who have survived in the first realm couldn't possibly fight their way out. At this point, whether or not you survive depends less on skill and more on fate and luck. No matter what kind of necromantic magic is used, even if Blood Eagle sacrifices his own soul, it cannot violate the law of conservation of energy. These zombies have been in a frenzy for a day or two without enough fresh flesh to replenish their energy. After 2 days, they will inevitably weaken. That will be my chance to escape. I'll use these 2 days to organize my study notes and craft some Devara cards. After 2 days, I'll leave here. Peng closed the curtains and returned to the room. 6 in the evening. In the brightly lit dining room, illuminated by candlelight, the 3 girls had changed out of their provocative attire and into the jeans and t-shirts left behind by Li Jingji. Compared to their previous seductive appearance, they now exuded a different kind of youthful beauty, as if transporting everyone back to the bright era of the 21st century. Looking at Dun Ningning in the ill-fitting white t-shirt and jeans, Yo Bail even stared blankly for a moment, until Wang Lei nudged him, dumbstruck. Is this your first time seeing her dressed? No, it's just, I think Dun Ningning is even prettier with clothes on than without. Hey, if those South University brutes heard you say that, they'd laugh you to death. You only think that because you've seen her without clothes on. Wang Lai teased Yao Bail, then went to help set the table in the kitchen. The new master seemed quite amiable, but her true temperament was still unknown. Li Jingji had been amiable at first too, calling him Brother Wang this and that, but later, that kid almost blew him away. The candlelight illuminated a table laden with food. Xue and Hong Ying seemed to be having a last supper. They had brought out almost everything edible from their food stores, bringing the level of food in the house to the festive standards of the pre-apocalypse era. Let's eat together. Although our meeting is entirely accidental, I hope I can be a respite in your long nightmare. A commercial break in a horror movie. I'm sorry, but I'm in this horror movie too. The help we can offer each other is limited. Raising a can of Tsingtao beer, Peng noticed that everyone else had water instead, but he didn't say anything. He took a small sip, just a gesture, following Peng's lead. The men and women stiffly seated around the table finally dared to pick up their chopsticks, looking at the table full of delicious food. Everyone's mouths watered. It had been 2 or 3 years since most of them had eaten so much meat they couldn't help but feel greedy. Chapter Lo 48 Understanding Hate. Xu Yo and Huang Ying were excellent cooks. With the table full of dishes and fragrant steamed rice, even Peng, who wasn't used to such good food, ate heartily. Peng didn't touch certain dishes, and no one else dared to either. Xu Ya's eyes twinkled, and she stood up, diligently ladling a bowl of tomato and beef soup for Peng. The beef, lean and fatty in perfect proportion, was tender and complemented the sliced tomatoes perhaps a bit too tender, almost like beef mush. Master, this servant hasn't made this dish in a long time, so the timing isn't quite right, but the flavor is still good. Thank you. Peng smiled and took the soup bowl from Xua's hand. He stirred it gently and brought it to his nose, inhaling deeply. The smile slowly faded from his face. He placed the bowl of tomato and beef soup on the table, truly looked at the girl beside him, his gaze strangely intense. A clever method, boiling the beef until tender, using the aroma to mask the smell of rat poison. If you'd use some exotic ingredients in a Western dish, and some uncommon poison, I might not have noticed. Of course, I don't eat Western food. Peng's words sent a shockwave through the room. Yo Bale's bowl of freshly served beef soup crashed to the floor, exposed. Suye drew a fruit knife from her waistband and lunged at Peng's heart. The murderous intent was palpable, ruthless and decisive. With a flick of his wrist, he grasped her arm, his fingers snapping, breaking the bone. Simultaneously his right foot, like a flat blade, sliced across the girl's legs, shattering both. He released her arm and with a flick of his finger, pulverized her right elbow joint. In an instant, Xuye's limbs were useless. She slumped, but before she hit the floor, Peng's right hand, shaped like a tiger, struck her face. The blow sent her sprawling at the feet of Wang Lai and Yao Bale. Xuye lay there, limbs broken, blood streaming from her nose, mouth, and ears. Yet she couldn't even scream. This little girl is yours, he said to the other two men. I don't care how you deal with her, but keep it down, kill her before you leave. This world is full of miracles, both imaginable and unimaginable. I don't want some demon coming after me for revenge in a few years. She certainly hates me, but she won't let you two off the hook either. He picked up a piece of scallion fried mutton. Xua's cooking was truly excellent. Too bad I won't be able to enjoy it again. He sighed inwardly. Pure Yang sex heritage includes methods for detecting poisons, and Peng himself was intimately familiar with Chinese cuisine. Poisoning him was far more difficult than attacking him directly. After all, his current capabilities were only that of a Ming Jin realm martial artist and a third-rate apprentice shaman, hardly worth the expense of high-grade shamanic poisons. Even with her limbs broken, her face a gruesome mess, Xuye glared at Peng with intense hatred and resentment. But Peng seemed oblivious, expertly picking at the dishes on the table. Everything except the tomato and beef soup was untouched. As for Xue, she was just an ordinary person, her low strength level resulting in weak soul power, not worth the value of a single, lowest, grade soul crystal. Otherwise Peng wouldn't have spared her soul. Xiaoya, how could you? Yes! Ever since that Li Jingjie became stronger and more handsome, Xiaoya fell for her former despised neighbor. Especially after being violated by Li Jingjie, she seemed to have decided he was her man. Hong Ying, witnessing Xue convulsing on the floor, having grown accustomed to life and death over the past 2 years, quickly explained Xue's actions to Peng. Also to clear herself and ensure her survival. In other words, they ended up developing feelings while doing it. The emotional world of you women is truly complex and unimaginable, Hong Ying was willing to explain, and Peng listened, but Dun Ningning, sitting beside them, seemed restless. Xuya, she merely mistook her submissive nature for love. Master, you are merciful. Grant Xiaoya a quick end. You must take responsibility for your actions. Before you stab someone with a knife, drag her to your room. If I see her again, I'll kill you both. Putting down his chopsticks and wiping his lips with a napkin, Peng smiled and addressed Yao Bale and Wang Li. Yes, master. Yao Bale and Wang Li, no longer concerned with their meal, dragged the struggling Xue to their room. Dun Ningning, my leniency seems to have given you too much time for sentimentality. Instead of extending kindness to that sort of person, focus on improving yourself and surviving. Tomorrow at 5 assemble here. I'll teach you survival skills for half an hour. Of course, attendance isn't mandatory. If you want to lie in, sleep in. We're in the abyssal demi-plane. No matter how hard we struggle, who can guarantee survival? Even after your best efforts, you might still not survive, but without effort, you certainly won't survive long. Everyone must bear the consequences of their choices. After the meal, Peng returned to his room. While the evening's events seemed to have no effect on him, his appetite remained surprisingly large. There was some impact. Under the light of 2 candles, Peng retrieved the faintly beating heart from the black cloth bag. The face of the handsome young man flashed before his eyes, along with Xue's crazed, resentful gaze. The prevailing view in the wizarding world is that all power originates from the soul. Human emotions are the key to opening the soul's door, and willpower is the hand that grasps the key. Feel it, touch it, understand it, embrace it, and release the deepest darkness within you. Gathering the memories of Li Jingjie and Xu Yai into a key, propelled by his mental will, he unleashed the deepest darkness within his heart. Moments later, Peng slowly opened his eyes. Before him was a withered face, etched with knife-like wrinkles. Long black hair obscured the eyes of the woman in white robes, but Peng could clearly sense her gaze upon him. My teeth clenched, but my right hand trembled involuntarily, driven by an inexplicable emotion. Rising and reaching towards the woman who filled me with such chilling terror, I chose to confront the fear and darkness in my heart. Just before Peng's hand touched the woman, she vanished with a pop, dissolving into fragments of smoke, soaked in sweat, as if pulled from the water. Peng glanced at the phone on the table. It felt as if he'd spent a long, long time in another world, but the digital clock on his phone showed only 2 minutes had passed in reality. After catching his breath, Peng crushed the soul crystal, using magic to melt the heart. The soul fire and the vessel combined into a thick ink, which he poured into a container. He needed to complete his third card while his feelings and insights were at their clearest. Although he still had the soul crystal and vessel of the corpse knight, that minor boss soul quality wasn't as superior, or as fresh, as that of the remarkable young man Li Jingjie. Perhaps, given some more time to comprehend power, this kid could truly grow into a high-level abyssal believer, even reincarnate as a din. The young Black Witch apprentice manipulated his rune pen, tracing the card along the path of his spirit and magic. A pitch-black giant bear, with a backdrop of a city filled with corpses, slowly materialized. A faint roar echoed in the room and a faint blue glow gathered and flickered on the battle card. Demon Bear's Power, Chapter 0049 Demon Bear's Power Parasitic Heart Combat Tactics. Strategy. The creation of each card by a Devourer cultist Black Witch is influenced by many factors: the Black Witch themselves, the surrounding environment, and the Witch's emotional fluctuations and mental insights. Cards created in a good state are more powerful, those created in a poor state are weaker. These factors lead to Devourer cultist Black Witches being either incredibly powerful, some possess overpowered cards like Peng's Bloodblade Mantis, or, well, not so weak either. Those who are truly weak are eliminated during their training. Devourers are a profession that extracts the souls of their enemies during battle to fuel their power. There are few real weaklings among them. Li Jingjie and Xuanhuan's life experiences, their understanding and mastery of the witchcraft bear's power, coupled with the necromantic magic permeating the ruined city, these factors combine to form Peng's first combat card, Necromantic Bear. Necromantic Bear Power Common, Necromantic, Mastery Level 60%, Rank Zoeth Rank. Level 20 effect greatly enhances the caster's physical strength. The contained necromantic magic weakens the subject's perception of pain. Inscription: City of the Dead. The immortal necromantic bear roars. Its power can tear the earth apart. This card is practically Peng's modified version of the witchcraft bear's power, for a normal learning progression. It's unthinkable for a third-rank apprentice to modify and perfect a witchcraft spell. To achieve this, one would need to be an incredibly talented future Grand Witch, possibly even reaching the legendary 4th rank. However, for Peng's school of witchcraft, while rare, this isn't exactly earth-shattering. It's a stage most Devourer mages go through in their growth, forcibly enhancing spell effects using soul power. However, other witches can't learn these modified spells because their foundation lies in the Devourer mage's soul witchcraft system, an extension of their meditation techniques and soul assisting system, none of which can be missing in the ruined city. Littered with human bones and corpses, the dark, heavy undead necromantic bear howled incessantly. Yet, after completing it, Peng casually set the combat card aside. His energy was still abundant, and more importantly, there was still a little more than half of the soul, flesh ink left in the glass container, slowly evaporating in the air. It seemed that the previous meditative insights had put Peng in an unusually good state, allowing him to create the necromantic bear power in one go. Peng felt he could do it again, or rather, create another card. Driven by lingering enthusiasm and his current state, he casually tossed the giant bear card aside. It wasn't going anywhere. Peng dipped his rune pen in the ink and once again began to draw runes on a new card. The result depends on the creator. Unless one is a true master of the Devourer mage school, the specific summoned spirit is beyond the witch's control. It's of matter effortlessly, of mental imagery, much like how ordinary people can't truly control their subconscious. In a way, the Devourer mage school is incredibly reliant on luck. Either you have countless soul crystals and abundant resources to forcefully accumulate strength, or you're a ridiculously lucky individual. Without either, rising through the ranks of the Devourer mages is exceptionally difficult. Peng wasn't exactly wealthy, nor was he exceptionally handsome, merely above average. His rune pen frantically embellished and connected the magical veins of the card. Despite his attempts at simplification, the ink of flesh and soul, constantly evaporating and consumed, was finally exhausted as the design took shape. The second card shimmered with a pale blue light, similar to the power of the demonic bear, yet lacking its deep azure brilliance. A pale imitation, it depicted a grotesque, fleshy heart pulsating feebly, desperately clinging to life, but the soul ink was depleted before the card was complete. Peng took a step back, bracing for magical backlash. Seconds ticked by, but the expected recall never came. The card on the table flickered incessantly. Though its pale blue glow faded, Peng could sense the creature within, its intense longing, its bitter resentment at its premature death, before even glimpsing the world. Well, he sighed. If you're so desperate to live. Standing before the table gazing at the shimmering card, Peng closed his eyes, delving into the depths of his consciousness, gently nudging the wheel of fortune, even without Peng's intervention. This trump card accumulated a small amount of fate energy daily. From a white card, it rose to blue, then gold, accumulating power far beyond his understanding. Before he'd even mastered its use, it reached the golden level, forcefully purifying the impurities of the green sludge during his creation of the Devourer card, inexplicably transforming a piece of trash into a golden masterpiece. Seeing the golden card in Peng's hand, the ghost-like figure, though outwardly composed, is inwardly astonished. If he hadn't valued Peng's potential so highly and been burdened with so many pressing matters, Zhu Peng would have been dissected by his own teacher that day, a brush with death indeed. Zhu Peng later learned the difficulty of crafting golden cards, breaking into a cold sweat. He was well aware of the dangers of possessing something so valuable. "You want to live," he murmured, reopening his eyes. A faint blue light emanated from the tip of his rune pen. He had gained a degree of control over the fate card, no longer unleashing its power recklessly as he once had. A rune pen, its tip glowing a pale blue, touched the card again. It summoned Sprite's power, stabilizing the card in concert with the pen. Zhu Peng's energy and stamina ebbed away with the flow of fate. At his current level, crafting a single bear strength card was just about manageable. He'd exceeded expectations. But then, with a little energy left, had pushed himself to create a second blue card, a reckless overextension of his abilities. Bear's strength, parasitic heart. The next morning, at 500 a.m., everyone else in the large house gathered in the kitchen as Zhu Peng had requested. They waited until well after 700 a.m., but he still didn't appear. Master, are you still resting? I'm coming in! Yao, emboldened by the others. The powerful man lay slumped over a wooden table, surrounded by Peng's books, and several cards resembling playing cards. He called out twice more. But there was no response. Yao looked at the books and notes on the table, and felt a strong urge to examine them. Knowledge is power, a truth that held true in the Age of Enlightenment, the Dark Ages, and the Age of Wizards. Humanity on Earth reshaped the world with technological might. The higher demons of the abyss wielded knowledge beyond human comprehension, and the practice of witchcraft was a process of accumulating knowledge and achieving self-awareness. Yao tiptoed closer. Zhu Peng's open notebook was filled with magical formulas and various characters. Individually, Yao recognized the characters, but together they were incomprehensible. The pen on the table, etched with strange pattern, wasn't a fountain pen. On the two scattered cards, one depicted a powerful black bear in a city reduced to ruins, while the other was a heart, octopus-like with fleshy tendrils. A pale blue light suddenly exploded in the room. A creature resembling a heart, waving fleshy tendrils, lunged at Yao chest. It easily tore through the boy's clothes. Yao felt something rip through his skin and muscles, burrowing into his chest, though he felt no pain. The eerie horror that seemed to seep into his soul made the somewhat timid boy scream and fall to the ground. He scrambled to his feet and fled. Wang Lei, Hong Ying, and Dun Ningning stood outside. They saw Yao, his thin chest, with something fleshy clinging to it. The three, accustomed to the bizarre horrors of the post-apocalypse, scattered. They watched, helpless, as Yao rolled and wailed on the floor, then fell silent, motionless in a corner of the living room. Add another rule: no one is allowed to enter my room without permission. The things inside are far too dangerous for you. Zhu Peng, his face pale, spoke calmly as he emerged from the room. Ignoring the other three, he went straight to Yao. In his hand was a card radiating faint blue magical light, inscribed with blasphemous script only those of the Devara school could understand. The parasitic heart, the second card Zhu Peng had crafted from Li Jingji's soul and flesh. Currently, however, heart, dark attribute it, intimacy 80, rank O-star, level 15, HP 6, attack 2, defense 7, speed 2, special attack 8, special defense 0, base stats 25, trait 1T, only truly powerful when parasitic. Trait 2, he differed, requirements doubled. Skills 1, host reinforcement, 2, Findish raw bullet, 3, overstate inscription, use its power with caution. For some it is fortune, for others disaster. Yao, are you dead? If you don't move, I'll throw you to the zombies. Watching the boy lying on the ground with disinterest, Zhu Peng noticed veins slowly spreading across his once emaciated back. His body and limbs were growing stronger, at a visible rate. I'm not dead, I feel powerful. Slowly rising, when Yao stood upright, Wang Lai, Dun Ningning, and Hong Ying gasped. Zhu Peng's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes narrowed slightly. The once slender boy now showed clearly defined muscles. Even his face seemed more handsome, with a slightly sinister attractiveness. The parasitic heart clung to his chest like a membrane, slowly sinking into his body. Soon it would be fully absorbed. Punch the wall beside you. What? Punch the wall, just do it. Zhu Peng watched the summoned spirit-possessed man, arms crossed. Yao hesitated, but dared not disobey. Punching the wall beside him, his first punch was hesitant, but he felt no pain. He punched again, then a third time. A warm current unconsciously hit harder. Bang! Large cracks and a clear indentation marred the tiled wall, while his fist only showed slight redness. Yao retracted his right fist, his gaze falling upon his hands in astonishment, marveling at the changes within himself. Yet deep within the young man's eyes burned ecstasy, a delirious joy. For countless days and nights, he had yearned and longed for this power. Li Jingji had vaguely sensed Yao Baile's deeply hidden jealousy, which explained his unkindness towards his former best friend. Now, Yao Baile finally possessed the power Li Jingji once wielded. Turning his head, he saw Wang Lai and the two girls standing there, mouths agape. This left Yao Baile feeling almost lightheaded. This was a look he could never have bought, no matter how much he'd tried to impress people in the past. It was the respect and fear inspired by power, something he'd craved for so long. Zhu Peng leaned against the wall, arms crossed. No one could see the two blue cards that had just flickered between his fingers. One, the parasitic heart, the other, the power of the demon bear. Spells that could only previously enhance himself were now enhancing Yao Baile, the host of the parasitic heart. The bear's power had greatly amplified his strength, the necromantic magic numbing his perception of pain. Even the parasitic heart's power strengthened Yao Baile's overall attributes: physique, strength, agility, mental intelligence and willpower, however, showed no change. 25 attribute points for the parasitic heart were too low for a zero-order card's summoned spirit. The axe-wielding hyena, a blank spirit, had far higher stats upon summoning. It seemed the parasitic heart's attributes were added to those of the host. Truly strange and mysterious card. Chapter Hara, the most practical survival skill, a zombie's self-control. When Peng removed the parasitic heart from Yao Baile, the young man showed clear hesitation and resistance. Yet he ultimately obeyed, walking to Peng and allowing the octopus-like parasitic lifeform to return to its card's confinement. Summoned spirits could be considered independent lifeforms. When Yao Baile had approached Peng's room to a certain distance, Peng had instinctively awakened, a subconscious thought in his mind, and the parasitic heart had drawn power from the auxiliary soul, launching itself at the enemy. This was the first time Peng had seen such a sentient summoned spirit. As it left the young man's chest, it seemed reluctant to depart. As the creator of the parasitic lifeform, Peng could sense its emotions, an intense greed and longing for flesh and blood, as if it was only complete when parasitizing a living being. However, the parasitic heart's clear thinking and willpower caused Peng to raise an eyebrow. It seemed to surpass the mutated sludge and the axe-wielding hyena. Possessing an intelligence comparable to a large dog, the parasitic heart pulsed slightly before being sucked into the card with a whoosh. Several noticeable holes appeared on Yao Baile's chest, but the strange organism seemed to secrete something that dulled pain and stopped bleeding. Yao Baile collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath with wide eyes, utterly devoid of the strength to stand. This thing does give you temporary power. It causes an abnormal secretion of hormones, allowing you to develop strong muscles and a powerful physique without training. But energy is conserved. Where do you think the energy for this strong body comes from? Leaning against the wall, Yao Baile could only nod weakly in response to Peng's warning. He still looked like a handsome young man, albeit with injuries requiring treatment. But he now possessed a physique and musculature that would have taken years of intense training. Ordinary humans can't freely control their latent potential, but the parasitic heart can. This dark attribute spirit allows a person's deep-seated potential to be fully unleashed in a short period. Anyone else who wants to sacrifice 10 years of their lifespan for this physique can come find me. Yao Baile was a bit surprised the effect had been too thorough. If the parasite had been implanted in his arm or another body part, the overdraft wouldn't have been so severe. It can be used, but you must never rely on its power. Toying with the card, Peng watched the racial value drop to 25 as he addressed Wang Lai and the two girls. Peng couldn't experiment with this new summoned spirit on himself. These people desperately needed the strength to survive. Using them to gather data wasn't excessive. After bandaging Yao Baile's wounds and escorting him back to his room to rest, Wang Lei and the two girls went to the living room for escape technique training with Peng. Especially after witnessing that morning's scene, Hong Ying and the others were full of anticipation, expecting to learn some profound and miraculous abilities. However, after half an hour of training, the three realized that their new master was teaching only basic physical training methods and running techniques. Slightly more challenging were some ramming techniques. Peng held his head with one hand and his abdomen with the other, arms outstretched, exploding with energy in a few steps before charging forward. A simple cross-arm charge was imbued with ferocious ferocity, like a raging wild boar in the mountain, charging head-on, making lions, tigers, bears, and leopards alike flee and avoid its edge. I'm not going to teach you how to meditate, how to fight, or how to use weapons. I'm teaching you the escape techniques I learned during the apocalypse. First, you need to be able to run. I'm not asking you to pump your heart, accelerate your blood flow and burst forth with incredible speed, but you must fully utilize the strength in your waist, hips, and legs. This way, the zombies' attacks will have a harder time directly knocking you down. Then, you need to build your stamina, to be able to disappear in a short time. Zombies don't get tired. If you can't outrun it with a burst of energy, you'll be the one who collapses in the end. Finally, there's the desperate dash. Often, you'll be surrounded with nowhere to run. In that situation, there's no choice but to close your eyes and charge towards where there are fewer zombies. Don't fight. Don't kill. You can't kill all those zombies. When practicing this dash, you need to cultivate the mentality that you'll charge forward even if it's a sea of knives and a hail of bullets. This is how you unlock your full potential and fight for survival. In the living room, Peng taught them real skills. If learned properly, they could significantly improve one's survival rate in the apocalypse. However, Peng didn't spend too much time on them. In half an hour, he taught them running and charging techniques, along with some simple exercises to strengthen their waists and hips. Then he left. After Peng left, Wang Lai and Dun Ningning practiced enthusiastically for a while, but soon they slacked off. Huang Ying, however, continued to exercise according to his instructions, experiencing the running and charging techniques. She gradually realized that while these techniques were simple, they could truly save lives in critical moments. Peng had expended too much energy drawing the parasitic heart. After returning to his room, he didn't meditate or practice his punches. Instead, he rested for half an hour before beginning to read the books Cole had lent him. Cole had said that in his youth, in his world, any book remotely related to witchcraft was incredibly valuable, worth risking one's life for. But in the world of witches under the eternal witch tower, the civilization of witches was too powerful and glorious. Countless extremely valuable pieces of knowledge were as readily available as common sense, of course. The various schools of witchcraft and even the eternal witch tower certainly had their own secret knowledge systems. That's only natural. While accumulating knowledge from his reading, Peng also frequently stood by the window to observe the zombies outside. They were evolving more and more amazingly. It seemed that because they couldn't find fresh meat, cannibalism had begun to appear within their ranks. Peng observed that one unusually strong zombie had begun consciously hunting and killing its own kind. It was clear that the cold, decaying flesh of its fellows was far less delicious than that of a living person. The surrounding zombies seemed not to notice it, and the cannibalistic zombie didn't devour the flesh with the same ravenous hunger it had shown with warm, bloody meat. It would take a few bites, then leave, returning after a while to continue feeding. It's as if cultivation isn't easy, yet one still consciously chooses to pursue it. This zombie had developed the self-control to compel itself. Rotten flesh wasn't palatable, but it still provided energy. While the energy within its surrounding peers steadily depleted, this flesh-eating zombie accumulated energy bit by bit. When this quantitative accumulation reached a qualitative leap, a new elite-level boss was born, of course. There was also the possibility of evolutionary failure and spontaneous disintegration. The effect of Blood Eagle's death recoil spell was astonishing. Some zombies, their energy depleted to the limit, began to devour each other. While this internal slaughter reduced their numbers, it significantly improved their quality. Elites, mutants, even bosses, their power was far beyond that of 30 or 50 ordinary zombies. After a moment's thought, he drew the curtains again. Reaching a conclusion now would only be self-deception. If Blood Eagle's death magic dissipated in 2 or 3 days, that would be the best outcome. If things changed again, Peng had no better recourse than to react accordingly. Another chaotic day quickly passed. Peng was drowsy all day, yawning incessantly at the dinner table, eating only a few bites before returning to his room to sleep. The others silently devoured the leftover food from yesterday. In the apocalypse, having such food was a great blessing. As for what to do when their already meager food reserves ran out, Peng didn't mention it, and the others were smart enough not to bring it up. Among them, Bale, his chest bandaged but now able to move independently, watched Peng yawn and return to his room. A look of ruthless determination flashed in his eyes. Peng seemed to sense it, glancing sideways. Bale quickly lowered his head, concealing the look as he rapidly ate a few more mouthfuls of food. The feeling of power was intoxicating, especially unearned power. At 1:30 a.m., when everyone was fast asleep, Bale climbed out of his bed. Wang Lei was sleeping soundly. He had poured all his energy into Xuanhuan, leaving Bale, under the pretext of his injury, to conserve his strength and energy. Bale pretended to naturally get up and leave his room. If he were discovered, he could claim he was going to the toilet. However, as he reached the master's bedroom door, Bale could no longer deceive others nor himself. He craved that power, the power that could transform him into someone like Li Jingzhe. If he'd never experienced it, it would have been fine. But having tasted the intoxicating strength that filled his body, Bale painfully discovered he couldn't forget it. That octopus-like creature, a grotesque heart pulsating with fleshy tendrils, was far more alluring to Bale than any beauty, a perverse desire born of the apocalyptic pressure. So what? He gently pushed open the door. Except for the food storage room, none of the rooms in this large house were locked. This was one of Li Jingzhe's methods of ensuring absolute authority. He could enter any room, possess any woman anytime. The house was his private, unguarded domain. After Peng killed Li Jingzhe, these few remaining people posed no threat. He hadn't bothered locking the doors. Reading was a far more worthwhile use of his time. He pushed open the door. The terrifying man slept soundly, seemingly exhausted. A few odds and ends and some cards lay scattered on the table beside him. Bale's eyes lit up at the sight of the cards. He quickly approached, and there it was, a blue card depicting a heart writhing with fleshy tendrils. Drawn to it as if by an unseen force, he placed his hand on it. A pale blue light flickered in the room. A fleshy tendril snaked around his finger, silently pulling a tiny blue form from the card. When the strange alien creature was fully in his hand, the blue light vanished, leaving the card blank. Bale complied, lifting his shirt to expose the wound. Still bandaged but unbleeding, the alien creature extended its tendrils, merging seamlessly with him. A surge of power coursed through him, almost causing him to moan with pleasure. He then grabbed the blue card depicting a giant bear. He seemed to understand his new master's source of power but dared not take more, fearing Peng's wrath if he awoke. 2 cards imbued with such power were more than enough. As he left the room, gathering the remaining food from the kitchen, Peng donned his No. 1 uniform, pen and notebook in hand, ready to record the data from his first live experiment. The boy had willingly walked into it. He had no right to complain even in death. Was it simply the warped desire for power born of the harsh apocalyptic environment, or did the little creature's secretions contain neurotoxins that clouded the host's judgment? That alien-like thing certainly didn't look harmless. Why had Yao Baile shown no hesitation, having geared himself up? Even with Zhu Peng's martial arts skills and equipment, nighttime travel in this zombie-infested ruined city was quite dangerous. Yao Baile had overestimated the power of the parasitic heart and the demonic bear's strength. His hope of using these two to survive in the outside world was a bit unrealistic. In the kitchen, Yao Baile, wrapping leftover food in a cloth, bumped into Dun Ningning, who had woken up. The young man and girl looked at each other. Dun Ningning's sleepy eyes widened, but before she could scream, Yao Baile lunged at her. He pressed her against the wall with one hand, and with the other, he pulled out a fruit knife from his pocket, stabbing her abdomen. 1 stab, 2 stabs, 3 stabs. At that moment, a low shout came from Zhu Peng's room. "Who's out there?" The sound was like thunder in Yao Baile's ears. He forgot about Dun Ningning, grabbed his package and ran downstairs. This large house was on the 5th floor, and while Li Jingji had blocked most of the entrances and exits, he had left 2 extremely hidden small openings. After all, he hadn't planned to live in this house for a lifetime, and even if he had, the supplies wouldn't have been enough. Chapter 051. The first live experiment, data collection. The thunderous shout tore through the darkness and silence of the house, quickly waking everyone. After all, living in this crisis-ridden apocalypse, they couldn't sleep as peacefully as they had in the days of prosperity. Seeing the blood-soaked Dun Ningning, Huang Ying, still half asleep, cried out in alarm, but quickly went to get bandages and medicine to treat her companion. Everyone changed with the changing environment. "Master, Yao Baile is gone!" Wang Lai, pale-faced, ran out of the room and told Zhu Peng. "Of course he's gone," Zhu Peng said. "He stole my things and dared to hurt someone. Take care of Dun Ningning. I'm going to get my things back." Looking at the pouring rain outside, Zhu Peng, clad in a black leather jacket, quickly left the house. He wasn't worried about losing him. There was a spiritual connection between the summoning card and the devourer, a connection that wasn't unbreakable. But Yao Baile clearly lacked the ability and knowledge to sever it. Now, it was time to see the limits of the parasitic heart's abilities and the ultimate effect of its potential activation. Zhu Peng remembered the inscription on the parasitic heart card very clearly: use its power cautiously. For some, it's a blessing; for others, a curse. When Zhu Peng once again located Yao Baile through their psychic link, the kid was wielding a fire axe of unknown origin, battling a horde of zombies in a dark alley. In the past, without Li Jingzhe's protection, Yao Baile and the others combined wouldn't have stood a chance against such a swarm. But this Yao Baile was different. His muscles were bulging, even his cheeks taut with hard muscle, his whole body encased in what looked like a suit of muscle armor. At first glance, he resembled Zhu Peng after nearly 20 years of rigorous training in Golden Bell cover, iron shirt, and the 13 Guardians' horizontal striking hard qigong. However, closer inspection revealed differences. When Zhu Peng exerted himself fully, his muscles and skin swelled. Yao Baile's were solid blocks of muscle. Martial arts emphasize internal cultivation of qi and external training of sinews, bones, not the large muscles signifying strength in the common eye. Of course, whether black cat or white cat, catching mice is what matters. After sustaining several serious injuries, Yao Baile had hacked and beheaded every zombie in the alley. As the last zombie lunged, Yao Baile puffed out his chest, opened his mouth, and spat out a ball of orange-red flame, engulfing the zombie's head in the torrential rain, incinerating it. It wasn't just his physique; the parasitic heart's effect, akin to a massive dose of stimulants, had amplified Yao Baile's mental state to an extraordinary level of excitement. This downpour hampered the zombie's sense of smell. Otherwise, the stench of blood alone would have attracted an endless horde. Is this what a demon's raw bullet is like? The super state is somewhat akin to a frenzy, capable of transforming an ordinary person into this state. If used on a powerful warrior, the wounds healed rapidly. The mechanism should stimulate cell division at several times the normal rate, providing several times the body's normal functional capacity, a truly self-destructive fighting style. The relentless rain disrupted the perception of the city's zombies. The few encountered were easily dispatched by Zhu Peng. Compared to Yao Baile's unrestrained ferocity, Zhu Peng's zong slaying was leisurely, almost as if he were sipping tea and picking flowers. He could eliminate groups of 50 or fewer zombies, excluding any enhanced ones, without expending too much time or energy. Zhu Peng wasn't sure what Yao Baile was thinking. Seemingly aware of the ease with which he'd gained this power, he was recklessly squandering it, wielding the fire axe to hunt down small groups of zombies, hoping to truly master this alien power through this wasteful expenditure. It was indeed effective. After several consecutive battles, Yao Baile's combat ability was rapidly improving to the level of a skilled axe warrior. This was norm. The hardest part of martial arts training is cultivating inner strength. Once you have extraordinary physique and strength, is killing people that hard to learn. To put it in a more mystical way, with extraordinary inner strength, you could kill someone with a roar. This is called overwhelming strength conquers all. However, onlookers see clearly while those involved are blinded. While Yao Baile was recklessly squandering his strength, Zhu Peng, observing him from afar through Chu Hao's far-sighted ability, discovered that Yao Baile's exposed skin had begun to dry out. His hair was turning grey and even falling out. The backlash was gradually manifesting. Inside a supermarket with a large sign, dozens of zombies lay on the ground. They had almost no obvious wounds. Only by getting closer could one find the thin cuts on their throats and necks that directly pierced the central nervous system. Among these fallen zombies, a thing looking like a dried-up monkey carrying a backpack, was greedily devouring canned food. Several half-eaten cans were discarded on the ground. At that moment, a white-haired man with a strong physique, his muscles like armor under a blood-splattered fireman's axe, strode into the supermarket. "Ha, old man, someone's already here. Find another place," the monkey-like man said, somewhat satisfied after his meal. He casually picked up a wooden splinter to pick his teeth. The lingering effects of Blood Eagle's last death magic were unknown, but he considered the food in this supermarket his own and didn't want anyone else to share it. Sure enough, with power, there's food everywhere in the city. I can get food and later, a few women won't be difficult. Li Jingji could do it, and so can I. I can enjoy what he enjoyed. Casting aside his burdens, Yao Bale hugged the scattered cans in the food area. The shelves were overturned, and most of the food was gone, but even the remaining small portion was a considerable fortune in the apocalypse. Hey, old man, didn't you hear me?" The monkey-like middle-aged man narrowed his eyes, a needle-like killing intent hidden within. Feeling the other party's deliberate display of power, Yao Bale felt a little intimidated. After thinking for a moment, he retreated a few steps. Seeing the fallen zombies around, he could tell that the sinister-looking middle-aged man in leather wasn't easy to deal with. In the past he would have retreated immediately, but now, having gained power, Yao Bale wasn't willing to leave empty-handed. Chapter 520 Heaven Forgives No One. The relentless rain and dull rumble of thunder pounded outside. Inside the dark, grim supermarket, two men faced each other in a tense standoff. "Boss, I fought my way here too. Even thieves don't go home empty-handed, so you can't let me leave with nothing, right? Split 2 cans of breakfast meat with me, and I'll move on to the next place." Yao Bale's voice was hoarse and low. He dismissed it as simply a sore throat, but his tone and address struck the thief as odd. The middle-aged man studied the unusually strong, white-haired elder again, focusing on the blood-smeared fire axe in his hand and the distribution of muscle on his body. After a moment he raised his chin. "Take them yourself. Grab 2 cans and get going." Yao Bale nodded and searched among a pile of empty cans, quickly finding 2 unopened ones. During this, a flash of lightning momentarily pierced the darkness outside. In the reflection of the opened can, the boy suddenly saw his own face reflected in the pale yellow metal. It was an incredibly aged, even showing age spots, unfamiliar visage. "Ah, heck! Shut up! Are you crazy? Do you think the zombies outside are deaf and blind in this downpour?" The middle-aged man, still eating, was startled by the sudden yell and immediately shouted back, How can this be?" Yao Bale pointed at the reflective metal, clutching his face. Some loose white hairs fell onto his hands, fueling his frantic terror. Yao Bale turned to the middle-aged man with a crazed, desperate look. In the flickering lightning, his terrifying expression sent a chill down the man's spine. "What's this and that? You don't even recognize your own face. Take the cans and get lost." He kicked the 2 cans, sending them tumbling against Yao Bale. The white-haired boy remained frozen, clutching his face, his expression a mixture of tears and laughter. "So that's it. So that's how it is." That black-robed young man had said to him that morning, "Energy is conserved. Do you think the nourishment that gave you such a strong body came from nowhere?" He hadn't listened then. Now that he understood, it was too late. After a moment's stoop, Yao Bale grabbed the fire axe beside him and lunged at the thin, middle-aged man. "Since I can't live anymore, at least you'll die with me." Shiro had no idea of Bal's complex and tortuous journey. The opponent, with an open defense and ferocious attack, completely caught him off guard. However, his skills were honed through years of training. A swift dart shot from the thief's right sleeve struck Bal's chest. An ordinary person would have been at least slightly affected by such a blow, but the white-haired strongman continued his assault as if nothing had happened, his axe raining down. Despite the thief's occasional counterattacks, he was overwhelmed. After dozens of axe blows, Bal's incredibly strong body had been hit by more than 10 darts and poison needles, yet to no effect. He opened his mouth and a blazing fireball roared out. The middle-aged man, his expression now grim, narrowly dodged it with a movement resembling an iron bridge. His martial arts skills, fighting techniques, and combat experience far surpassed Bal's. However, he was currently in poor condition, and his opponent was attacking relentlessly, fighting like he was avenging the death of a father or the abduction of a wife. A thief and a berserker going head-to-head is already a losing proposition, and Bal's all-out offensive compensated for his flaws. For a short time, the weaker fighter completely dominated the stronger one. The thief reduced to mere defense with no ability to counterattack, but the middle-aged man, a wooden toothpick in his mouth, moved like a ghost, dodging Bal's furious assault. He was like a tough piece of chewing gum, seemingly on the verge of being overwhelmed. Yet no matter how fiercely Bal attacked, he remained unharmed. After about half a minute, Bal's wildly swinging axe suddenly lost its power. As if guided by some unseen force, a jet-black dagger, shaped like a viper, appeared in the thief's hand. His body flickered in the shadows, and in a moment, the man who had been so surprisingly agile and purely defensive had passed Betel, leaving behind the axe-wielding youth's severed head high in the air. The thief wiped his viper dagger, his brow furrowed. Not only did his magical weapon fail to react, but the sensation of decapitation felt like cutting through wood. Not the elastic flesh and bone of a living being. The headless body fell to the ground, without the expected spray of blood. The strong body withered and dried in front of the thief. eventually losing all signs of life, resembling a decaying, wood-like corpse. The middle-aged man knelt down. He considered himself a man of the world, but he had never witnessed anything so bizarre and unnatural. The thief crouched to examine the corpse more closely. With a sickening crackle, a fleshy, wood-like protrusion on the decaying remains burst open, and a slimy, octopus-like creature flung itself at the thief's face. He caught a tentacle with his gloved hand, and before the creature could fully ensnare him, the middle-aged man flicked his wrist, hurling it away. The mass landed with a splat, then righted itself, swaying dizzily on its tentacles before scuttling into the dark passageway Yao Bale had just entered. The thief didn't pursue. From the opposite passage, a 5 or 6-year-old girl in tattered white clothes and blonde hair tumbled out, followed by a young man in a black raincoat, a leather-bound notebook in his left hand, his right hand furiously scribbling. He flashed a bright smile at the wary thief, like a university student bumping into a classmate on the way to school, a warmth that belied the dark, apocalyptic setting. The octopus-like creature enveloped the still, twitching zombie girl, squeezing itself into her back. After a violent shudder, the girl moved again, a feral beast on all fours, baring its teeth at the middle-aged man from beside the black-coated man's leg. Chapter Order 53. The Pure Young Woja's Azure Demon Hand. Thief, we meet again. The young man said, "Where's your boss, Growl? Did you off everyone in Crimson Rose and then your own boss for good measure?" He tucked his notebook away, pocketed his pen, and patted the head of the golden-haired girl at his feet. She had a cute face, beautiful dark blue eyes, and fat maggots wriggling in the decaying flesh of her cheeks. A moment of silence. "Fuck you," the thief spat. "I kill and steal. You experiment on the living to gather data. Next, you want to kill me. Are you crafting some righteous justification to chop me down? If you want this, just say it. 25,000 gold coins is enough to tempt anyone, so cut the saccharine act." He tossed a cloth bag onto the ground. It burst open, spilling a bulging leather pouch embossed with magical runes. From Ju Peng's angle, he could see it was full of gold coins and jewels, a quiver of returning arrows. Ju Peng sighed. "I didn't think you'd actually loot that magical equipment. Too many people died. Though it's hardly worth it in the end." He affected the air of a compassionate sage, viewing humanity as a sea of suffering, drowning in greed, hatred, and delusion. "We risk our lives for wealth," the thief said. "No regrets in life or death. I'll trade this for my life. Let me go, how about that?" Spitting out the wooden stick he'd been holding in his mouth, the middle-aged man, having hidden after the Blood Eagle's deadly counterattack, hadn't eaten much in the past 2 days. He'd finally managed to sneak out during a downpour, found some food and had a good meal, only to be blocked in the supermarket by this incredibly formidable-looking opponent. His stomach was full, and he didn't want, nor dare to fight this to the death. Using words to unsettle his opponent, the moment Ju Peng seemed about to reply, the middle-aged thief's body exploded with dozens of flying knives, poison needles and crossbow bolts. Skilled thieves could conceal items on their person. The most exaggerated legends spoke of drawing a double-handed axe while wearing only shorts. Was that not akin to wearing a storage ring? After unleashing all his hidden weapons, the middle-aged man transformed into a shadow and darted away. He didn't even bother fighting, he just ran. Because anything lost could be regained, but life, you only get one. The problem was that Ju Peng didn't want to be targeted by such a powerful thief in the ruins of a city crawling with zombies. Taking advantage of chaos was the forte of these agile professionals who lived in the shadows. His compassionate demeanor vanished, replaced by a shifter, an unrestrained, domineering killing intent that instantly locked onto the fleeing middle-aged thief. 3 laws of otherworldly adventure. 1. Don't mess with wizards. 2. If you mess with old thief, kill them quickly. 3. Stay away from religious fanatics. His right hand grabbed the gun holster on his back and threw it forward into the air. The next moment, Ju Peng charged forward with his shield. The layered shield shadows enveloped him, deflecting all the projectiles. The poison needles, flying knives, and light crossbows were indeed tricky, but unless one possessed exceptional skill, they lacked power at any distance. Their disruptive effect far outweighed their actual lethality. Deadly poison was not easily attained, difficult to apply, and easily led to self-harm. Therefore, most low-level thieves simply coated their weapons with ordinary anesthetic. The moment Ju Peng charged, the golden-haired girl, wild as an, had already ghosted towards the thief. Under her pale skin, dark veins spread, making her faster, stronger, more ferocious and violent. Ju Peng's spiritual power was flowing through the parasitic heart, infusing her entire body. A semi-transparent ball of energy erupted from the little girl's mouth. The thief's instinctive dodge faltered slightly. Just then, Ju Peng had smashed through the oncoming projectiles. He returned his left-hand shield to his waist. 7 heavy metal javelins fell precisely from mid-air. The black-haired youth exhaled slightly, his strength radiating from his feet. The next moment, he delivered 7 consecutive heavy blows, each strike aimed precisely at the rear end of the metal javelins. The force shifted from vertical to horizontal. Boom, 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 boom. Ju Peng, like a cannon, unleashed 7 devastating blows upon the thief. The coldly expression. Middle-aged thief was no slouch, his bones twisted and contorted with unnatural flexibility. However, at that moment, a blue light flickered around the small zombie, and imbued with the power of the demonic bear, her strength surged dramatically. With a burst of incredible power, she lunged at the thief's leg, sinking her teeth into his flesh. "Ah!" no longer capable of maintaining his incredible agility and speed. The middle-aged thief barely managed to evade 4 of the 7 heavy javelins with a glancing blow, using his dagger to parry 2 more. The final javelin struck him in the left abdomen. The tremendous force sent him crashing into the wall behind him. A spray of blood exploding outwards, the ice, fire, and impact enchantments combined into a destructive force, nearly blasting a fist-sized hole in the man's lower abdomen. With a violent kick, he swept the blonde zombie away from his leg, uncaring that she tore away a bloody chunk of flesh. This hardened, powerful thief seemed to have activated some desperate life or death technique. Despite his grievous wounds, he remained agile and swift, sprinting forward before Peng could reach him with his axe, escaping the javelin that pinned him. It wasn't that he didn't try to pull it out, he simply couldn't. Before Peng could close in for melee combat, the middle-aged thief made 2 rapid lunges, attempting to escape through the window before being drawn into close quarters fighting. Before he could, however, 2 gusts of wind swept from behind. The middle-aged thief was forced to dive, a round shield and a short-handled axe whistling past him. Striking the wooden counter with a resounding bang-bang, his black robes billowed as Peng, barehanded and demonic, enveloped his opponent within his striking range. "I'm even barehanded now, and you still want fight to the death? Good griefless! Leaving me no way out." Pressing back the protruding intestine spilling from his abdomen with his left hand, the fiercely strong and grim-faced middle-aged thief licked his dry lips. He was like a wild wolf cornered in the wilderness. And as Peng closed in barehanded, a savage, cunning and ruthless aura erupted from him. The thief ceased fleeing, holding his jet-black, viper-like dagger reversed in his right hand. He moved like lightning, slashing towards Peng's throat. This was a close-quarters combat technique honed from the thief's mastery of concealing objects. At this moment, the dagger might be hidden beneath his arm, or it might not be there at all. Where and from what angle it would strike was impossible to predict. Agile thieves, without such terrifyingly unpredictable methods, could never have stood their ground against strength-based warriors and constitution-based knights for centuries. The next moment, their elbows collided. The middle-aged thief's physique and strength were far inferior to Peng's, but with a knife in hand, he forced Peng to hold back, unable to pursue him relentlessly. Their arms intertwined, their bodies locked in a fierce grapple. Close combat with a thief whose hidden dagger remained a mystery, a perilous situation. Yet this was Peng's choice: close quarters combat, relentless pursuit, pressing the opponent's grievous wounds until death. The middle-aged thief's left elbow plunged downward, striking Peng's abdomen. Peng's palm rose to block, their bodies colliding again with a solid thud. Peng countered, attacking from above with superior strength. He hadn't been wearing gloves while taking notes, but the lack of concealment now revealed the terrifying, uncanny horror of his martial arts. Peng's hands, from palm to elbow, bulged with prominent veins. His palms were dark and terrifying. This was the Iron Sand Palm, Green Demon Claw, a demonic martial art, hardening his palms in hot iron sand, refining them with external medicinal washes.